So, good afternoon, friends. My name is Yvonne Dominguez, and today I am so pleased to share that I get to spend some time with Erin Dee. Now, a little bit about why we're doing this today. It brings me great pleasure to say that I have served on the board of WIMIN, and a little background on WIMIN and what it stands for. WIMIN represents the Women Inclusive Mortgage Industry Network, for short, WIMIN, right? WIMIN. So what do we do? As an organization, we were founded on the principle of creating a community of women in our industry on a local basis where women can actually support each other in our personal development, our growth, advocacy, and of course, networking. And Erin, of course, who is with me today, she is the Chief Operating Officer of InterLinc Mortgage here in the Houston area. And she's going to be the speaker of our upcoming luncheon that features an executive women panel. And the theme of that luncheon is Knowledge is Power. And of course, Erin, I know that we all know you or have come to know you through your voice in LinkedIn and a number of other platforms. You are a true advocate for our industry. And I know that you've been spending some time on the road lately, right?
Yes,
Advocating.
yes, so much time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were in Washington, D.C. recently. You just returned there and you were advocating with the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association on behalf of not just mortgage lenders, but also homeowners. And I know you're very passionate about your work.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
definitely a great trip. So much going on in DC right now. So let's get right into the thick of it.
Yes. And you have time for us today.
Of course. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, speaking of knowledge, you started in the industry, I think, right out of college, is what I
Yes.
remember reading, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was actually one of the few people that intentionally came into the mortgage business. I had a real estate class that absolutely loved and realized that was the place for me.
Awesome. And then, so what prompted you, I think, maybe 6 years or so afterwards, you decided to pursue your MBA? Why did you
Yes.
do that? And what did that lead? What did that do for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had always planned on following up my bachelor's with a master's in finance. I love schooling, I love education, and I knew that to get to the levels of my career that I wanted to be, that I probably would need to look at higher education. So it was always on the roadmap for me. But then I hit the ground running at Option One Mortgage. They hired me as an underwriting trainee, as you said, in 2002. And so that kind of my career really took a pretty fast pace there. I was getting to do a lot of great things on special committees, moved up to underwriting manager, had a lot of really great opportunities there. So making the time and the time investment to work on my master's degree was something that fell to the wayside. And then once subprime collapsed,
Mhm.
I saw that as an opportunity to maybe take a breather. I had to take a step back in my career in terms of the role and the position. So then I had more time to focus on my master's. And so I decided that was the perfect opportunity to do it. So I took the ball and ran with it.
That's great that you saw that gap and that opportunity to do that. And especially at a time where maybe the industry was changing and you were
Yeah,
probably thinking, well, where's this going, right? So it's good to
exactly.
have that extra piece of credential behind you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Our mortgage industry is a place where oftentimes people will say it gets in your blood, and you don't have to have obviously a formal education to make a career in the industry. But yet, the acquisition of knowledge, I think, is important. So, how have you done that to get to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I think mortgage is one of the few places or industries where you can have a GED and make more money than a doctor does, right? And that's one of the things I love about this industry so much is that there are so many opportunities for people who do not have the opportunity to go to college or a graduate degree. For me, I saw it as something that would allow me to get to some higher levels, maybe in an area where a degree is a little more looked at, or a little more required, right? Going out in sales is a little bit different than going through the executive ladder. And so to me, I saw that for my path, but I learned so much going through that process. First of all, just having to juggle a workload and manage my classes, but really kind of just understanding and getting to the principles of some of the lessons that we learned, right? Some of just the basics of trading, of options, of management skills, of some basic operational procedures, right? So you kind of get to the basics and understand why certain processes that are in place, or how to look at certain things.
Mhm.
So I think just having that foundation is very helpful. But for me, what was probably the best lesson I had was really how you have to work in a small group of people that think completely differently than you, and you have to get along with them in order to complete a goal, right? In business school, everything is team structured, team oriented. There's no individual projects. And so you had to learn how to get along with this group of 4 or 5 other random people that you got assigned with at the beginning of the semester,
Mhm.
and get to the finish line with a project that was a large percentage of your grade. So you weren't going to get that degree if you couldn't figure out how to work with other people. And so to me, that was kind of the best lesson that I learned out of it, is how to learn with people that I don't get to choose to work with, that get chosen for me.
Yes, kind of like serving on a board too, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think
Yes.
I think that collaboration of being able to share, different views and working with people with different backgrounds and perspectives, and everyone brings something a little different to the
Yes.
table, right? So you
Absolutely.
leverage off of each other,
Yep.
right? It's knowledge is in power, but or yeah, power, knowledge is in power, power is in knowledge, but it's also in teamwork, right? It's also in
Absolutely.
teamwork. Yeah.
It absolutely is. Yes.
Now, we also hear oftentimes about, yes, you have the skills and the ability to collaborate with others. And speaking about this topic that you just mentioned, the teamwork, what about working with with the team's emotions? We oftentimes hear about the term emotional intelligence. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And how has that served you in your leadership roles?
Yeah. So for me, emotional intelligence, and this is going to be, if you ask 10 different people this question, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yep.
For me, emotional intelligence means really being able to sit back and read a room and to read your audience. So you have to be able to understand if, if you're coming at it from an emotional standpoint, like how do you control your own emotions, but also how are the people around me reacting? Are they being emotional? Do I need to help take them out of the situation to calm down and realize you can't use your emotional brain and your rational brain at the same time, right? So being able to read that, understand if people are understanding you and receiving the information that you have. And so, too long didn't read, as I would say, really being able to read a room. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I gave, or tried to pass along to first timers at the advocacy event last week in DC. Was you're going to you could be talking to a representative or senator or their legislative assistant or an intern, right? And it's real easy for those of us who know mortgage really well to get bogged down on the jargon and the nitty gritty of it.
Yes.
Right. But like, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, try to understand the level of the person that you're speaking to and where their understanding is, and meet them at their level. Otherwise, they're not going to hear you, and none of what you're trying to relay will actually get through.
I am with you 100%. You said read the room, and those are my words, right? That's exactly what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
And when you speak of acronyms, of course, I review resumes and I coach people in their job transition. And how often do I just see this resume of someone that wants to transition into a different role or career, and no one can really understand what they're talking about unless they're in that industry, right?
Yeah.
Or even in that area
Absolutely.
of the industry, as an example. So you're absolutely right. Making it relatable and getting at their level is really what emotional intelligence is about. And a little compassion sprinkled in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Especially when people get emotional, you never know if they had a bad day, fight with their spouse, whatever, right? So,
Yeah.
I think being able to understand that if people are just having an emotional reaction, instead of meeting them at that emotions, how do you diffuse it and step away for a minute?
And sometimes it's a good idea just to pause,
Yep,
hit the pause
absolutely.
button, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So when it comes to learning and knowledge acquisition, do you feel like curiosity, your level of curiosity drove you in any of your learning or your desire to learn one aspect of the industry over another, or maybe in how you serve on the boards that you serve in today, or even your desire to be president of the
Yeah,
TMBA?
absolutely.
Mhm.
For me, the thing I always say is I built my career by finding a need and filling it. And how that came about is I would go to my bosses and say, hey, to understand this, what can I do? I would like to do this, or I'd study this. And so, you had times where people were at the bar at happy hour, or, out doing other things. And I was up studying how to configure business rules in Encompass, or trying to understand, Fannie Mae approval guidelines, or, name any other things, right? So for me, I want to be able to know and understand, because then I can be a resource. I need less resources from others, the more I understand, right? And then I'm able to be more of an asset to my employer. So kind of, for me, it's like, hey, I want to know all these things, but also knowing all these things helps make me an asset. So anytime there was an opportunity to learn more, to figure out a different aspect of the industry, I would raise my hand, and it didn't really matter like what else I had to do. I would make sure that I did that. Got that knowledge. I created that value for myself.
Yeah, and you hit on something there. You raised your hand, right? So when you raised your hand, you did not always know the answer, did you?
No,
Yeah.
nope, not at all, but I sure found it.
Right.
Um, I sure found it. And that's another reason why it's just great to make friends in this industry and build a really strong network, right? Because,
Yes.
you never know when somebody's going to pick up the phone and need your help, and then you can do the same and turn around, pick up the phone and get their help. And so, I'd say this industry, it's critical to build that network, get out there, meet people, put yourself out there, because it'll come back to you tenfold.
100%. And again, that's such a beautiful circle back to what our organization is about. I serve on the board of WIMIN, and I attend every meeting and luncheon, most of them, I would say.
Mhm.
And I've had such incredible feedback from the women that just say, we're really doing something here. I mean, they're really setting up those coffee meetings. They're getting to know each other. They're really trying to help each other. They're listening. And
Yes.
I find that to be so refreshing and invigorating, right? When you
Yeah,
see
I
that
love it.
happening. So you're
Absolutely.
going to share a lot more at our upcoming luncheon.
Yes.
And again, I thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I always love to hear your nuggets. And whenever I get a chance, I go on LinkedIn and I'll say, have I seen that video of hers? Let me go back and take a look, right? You've done a couple of fabulous interviews, and
Thank
I'm
you.
not going to share all the secrets because I want to entice, our friends to come and join us at the upcoming luncheon. And I have to warn you, we have a very engaging audience, so it should be a lot
Awesome.
of fun. A lot
I
of
can't wait. I'm super excited. This is going to be a really great event. And thank you
yeah.
so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And so that is on May the 8th at Weezy's Table, and you can find the link to register on this post. And thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Same here.
Bye-bye.